Hey, and welcome to the Rebase Show, the show that is all about profession with purpose. And today, I'm really excited to have this conversation with somebody who, just like you, listens to this podcast and wanted to make a change, a shift in their career so that it could be more fulfilling and more purposeful, maybe without necessarily starting a business or becoming an entrepreneur or taking that leap, but they wanted to take a leap of their own. And our guest today is somebody who wanted to combine his background, his profession, his education, the career that he was in with something that he was passionate about, something that started as a hobby maybe and became even more. And so today we're going to have a conversation with my friend Brent, who you'll hear his story here in just a minute. And he was able to muster the courage and the bravery to go out and stretch outside of his comfort zone and make a shift and a change in his career and in his life that would impact himself and the people in his life, but for the better. And so without further ado, Brent, welcome to Rebase.
Thanks, Sean, for having me. I'm excited to discuss this with you and let everyone know what I got from that episode of your podcast that, well, I think is going to change my life, honestly.
First of all, thank you. That's amazing and something that, flatters me to no end and makes me feel super humble. To give folks a little bit of background into kind of, your path to this point and your career up to this point. So what is the field or the industry that you've been working in and for how long?
So I've been in accounting about 8 years now. Went back to school. I went to Florida State originally. I graduated around the time the economy went into the hole, so no one really wanted someone with an economics degree. So I worked for my fraternity, our fraternity, for a little bit, for 1 year. Went into retail. I realized that wasn't the life for me. So I decided at that point I was going to go back to school, get my CPA, certified public accountant, studied at Florida Atlantic University in my hometown of Boca, and got my CPA in 2014. I started as essentially a paid intern in accounting, learning the debits and credits and everything about it. A few years later, I learned of what's called forensic accounting. Now, the definition of forensic is anything that can be used in court, in law, like Forensic Files, TV show you watch. It's all about how everything is put together and used either in a murder trial or a fraud case or whatever. And I was very, very intrigued by fraud. It was actually when I learned that it was an IRS agent that took down Al Capone, when I really, really got excited and wanted to do forensic accounting. So I've been doing forensic accounting about 4 years now. I did divorce for 3 years. That was another story for another day.
And forensic accounting for divorces?
Yeah. So in a divorce, you have assets and everything that needs to be split, and the attorneys aren't always educated on that, so they bring in forensic accountants. Usually, it's higher net worth divorces. So I did that for a few years. Now I do primarily commercial litigation, bankruptcies, a little bit of fraud. Again, I said the fraud was the biggest reason for me to get into forensic accounting. But at this point, I've decided to make a career shift and leave forensic accounting and actually go into private accounting for a company. It was your podcast. I believe it was released in July. Stop waiting for permission to grow or change your career. I listened to it one day, and I'm a huge aviation fanatic. A friend took me flying years ago, and once I found out that it was attainable, I worked and got my pilot's license. And ever since then, I've just had a want to to combine, like you said earlier, my profession and passion. So working those together, and that's where I'm at today. I'm moving into aviation.
Okay, so you mentioned that a friend took you flying. I assume in a small jet that your friend was flying, and you're sort of in the
Not a
passenger
jet.
seat. Sorry, I don't know the industry. A
It's
small plane, a prop plane,
Cessna, yes. Single
Cessna.
engine
Okay.
is what we call it.
It took you flying, and were you hooked right away,
Right away.
or
It's we call it the aviation bug, and it takes is one flight. You go flying once. Once you realize you are defying the laws of physics. Humans aren't meant to leave the ground. And once you get up there, and when he let me take over the plane, and it became my control, my input is what moved the plane up, down, left, right. That's when I was like, I'm doing this one day. And then I researched it. He actually bought me for Christmas a few years later what's called a discovery flight lesson. You go up with an instructor. They let you fly the plane. They let you do they'll help you, but you get to take off. They're going to be controlling it, so you do it properly, but your hands are on the yoke. You fly around for an hour. I got to fly the plane, and that was life changing, and really made up my mind to pursue it.
yeah? So you were kind of hooked on that first trip with your friend, and then you get that second trip, and that's that second flight, and you said you knew you were hooked then. So how long then have you been flying? You know, as an amateur, as a hobby.
So after that was probably in 2015. In 2016 was when I said, you know what? I looked into it. The cost, getting your pilot's license is not as unattainable as a lot of people think. When I first got into it, I was like, you got to make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Planes cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's only for the rich people. When I actually looked into it, you can get your pilot's license anywhere between $8,000 and $12,000. Planes, I just started a flying club, and we bought a plane for 25,000. So it's much more attainable than a lot of people think.
It's cheaper than most cars.
It is. It's cheaper than some new cars. You're flying planes that are built in the 70s, but they're kept up. They have to be federal aviation
Right.
regulations. So
Yeah.
uh, I flew for a little bit in 16, got maybe 10 hours. 17, I took off. I didn't fly as much. And then I found a local flying club, and I said, I'm getting this done. So in about 6 months' time, I buckled down. I passed the knowledge portion, where you study, you go take a multiple choice test, and then you got to get in the plane, fly, get comfortable. There's procedures, maneuvers you have to do. And on July 7th of 2018, I took my practical, and I got my pilot's license, which was a day I'll never forget.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, it's one of those hobbies that, at least for somebody like me, I've never considered, because much like you, I figured it's something that was unattainable, right? It's going to be an extremely expensive hobby. It's going to be like I don't have a good
A
comparison,
yacht,
but something that's
owning a
going to
yacht,
cost
yeah.
you tens of thousands of dollars. Yes, exactly. It's like, yeah, actually, that's a very good comparison. It's like, yachting or boating. It's like, well, I don't really, I don't have the money to own a boat, or to own a yacht, for God's sake. But it sounds like you did your research and you found that it was less daunting than you originally thought, less unachievable than you originally thought, and you were going to make this a hobby and a pastime of yours.
Exactly.
So that's amazing, and that in and of itself, I think, deserves recognition. That a lot of us, in my mind, at least, we might live to work on occasions, right? And we just spend a lot of time in our profession thinking that that is the point of our lives, and we work and work and work and work, and then we watch TV, or go to the movies, or do, pardon my puppy, we do unremarkable things on the weekends. And you went out and found a much more fulfilling hobby. So tell me then, switching a little bit back to accounting and how you were in forensic accounting, you were doing, you got into it via your interest in fraud, and you were doing a little bit of divorce work. Can you talk a little bit about how you came to feel like something was missing, or it sounds like you maybe felt a little bit less motivated in that space, a little bit less driven, or a little bit less passionate? And just talk a little bit about how you were feeling at that time. Uh, at that point in your career, it sounds like it wasn't long ago. It might have been a year or two ago.
Yeah. Like I said, I got interested in forensic accounting for when I found out that it was the IRS agent that took down Al Capone. I thought that was really cool. I'd thought about law enforcement at one point in my life, and that wasn't really a path. But I've always been interested in quote taking down the bad guy, and that is what pushed me into forensic accounting. I got my certified fraud examiner CFE certification, and I said this is why I want to do forensic accounting. Well, as you can imagine, divorce, you're really helping wealthy people fight over money, property, uh, and then so I moved out of the divorce field, and then I got into commercial litigation, and it really it got better. It wasn't so petty as divorce can sometimes end up. But again, I'm helping companies argue over invoices, over contracts and money, and I really, like you were saying, I was unfulfilled by the fact that I got into this to take down the bad guy, to track that, follow the money, see where money was stolen, misappropriated, whatever. Pretty much the only way you're going to do that is working directly for law enforcement or the FBI. And the FBI's process is kind of burdensome and tedious. And a special agent can be moved anywhere. And I really didn't, at that point, I decided it wasn't the life I was looking for. So, yeah, it was about 6 months ago, right before I was actually looking for a reason to make this move. I was only at the company about 6 months, and I don't like leaving places short term. I don't want my resume looking like I'm a job hopper. So uh, I didn't want to do it. I was really reluctant. And then listening to your podcast, and I don't need permission to change my career. So
Yeah, well, and as I sit here and play tug of war with a 4-month-old puppy, sorry again, and I appreciate those folks who aren't watching this episode who can appreciate the struggle physically that I have with this toy here. A lot of folks are in exactly your position. I've been in that position myself, where you want to not just you want to have a good looking resume. You don't want to look like you job hop, because as a hiring manager, I've looked at plenty of resumes of people who spend 6 months at a job and then 9 months on a contract and then a year at a job. And those people, they can tend to scare me as a hiring manager. And I also, personally, at least, I've always been oriented around appreciating when a company gives me an opportunity. Right. And if they give me an opportunity, I want to give them a certain amount of time, of my time, to prove my value and provide value. So I can totally appreciate where you were coming from. Something else I want to kind of hone in on is, you mentioned that if you are a special agent, if you had gone the government route, the FBI route, like that, you could be moved anywhere.
yep.
And for anybody who is watching this episode, you will probably notice a collection of broken down boxes behind Brent. So tell us a little bit about that, about where you are currently, and what you know what's going on in your family life. It's not just you, right? You've got a family, and there was some hesitation around that as well, wasn't there?
Yeah, there definitely was. That's I've been with My girlfriend, we just passed 11 years. We met in college right before I graduated. We spent about 4 years long distance while she was in law school, and uh, she's a very big part of my life. And we're while probably about 6 months ago, when I decided that I was going to do this, I said, why don't we go somewhere else? I'm in South Florida. I'm born and raised here. I grew up a mile and a half from here. I went to high school 3 miles from here. Um, it's same thing with my girlfriend. She's a little further away, but she's from South Florida. There's a lot to do here. Either I've done it or I'm not enamored with it anymore. I've lived in Georgia for about a year, and other than that, school. So I've majority of my life has been around here, and that's about 6 months ago. We decided that, hey, let's leave. Let's go somewhere. So we we talked about it, and her current position is more difficult to come by. So I said, well, let's go where your job is, and I'll find something. I'm an accountant. As I mentioned, she's an attorney. Florida has reciprocity with nobody. So if she wants to practice, luckily she does non-traditional law, but if she wants to get her bar license, she has to take the bar again. As a CPA, I can go to any state that has the same requirements. It's called the Uniform CPA exam. So they've taken the same test I have. It's usually a quick application process. They make sure I'm good standing in my home state, and I can transfer my license. So I said, we'll go where your job is. I don't want you to have to leave your job. So we toyed with a few different locations: Dallas, Phoenix, California, Detroit, New York might have been in there, and then there's South Florida, and also Denver, Colorado. So we go to Colorado often. We go skiing. We've got friends there. One of her sibling lives there, and we just decided, hey, let's move to Denver, Colorado. Let's do it. We're looking for a change. Why not go from the beach to the mountains? That's about as big of a change that you could get. So yeah, that's what these moving boxes are for. We're heading out in just about 3 weeks.
Good deal. So, I mean, I kind of want to stress that too, because I think it's important for folks to realize that just because you have a relationship or you're in a relationship doesn't mean that you should be afraid to have that conversation, right? And I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, you wouldn't be human if you didn't at least fear like having that conversation a little bit in the first place. But you had the conversation knowing that you're in that relationship with that person and you're in it together, right? So I I know that I've made a few drastic moves in my life, but generally I've done it when I haven't had a significant other or, immediate close family. But you can do this when you have somebody else in your life. And I love how, you wanted to make this change, and at the same time, you took the approach of her first, right? Like, where is best for her to go, and you'll figure it out.
Yes, yeah, that was we've had the conversation many times before, and it I'll be honest with you, it scared both of us. It's leaving your comfort zone. It's leaving uh, both of our parents, our set's parents, still live down here. We're leaving them. Uh, I have three siblings. They've all moved. Two are in California, one's in Missouri. So I'm I'm the last one here, and my parents joke that, well, you're the last one to leave. So it's it's kind of it was my younger brother called me. He's like, "What are you doing? You leaving mom and dad behind?" I said, "Dude, you left 2 years ago. Don't pin this on me."
Right. This is
So
this is this isn't me. This isn't on me. Like, y'all
yeah,
left me in this position. Yeah,
yeah.
totally,
So,
totally.
so
So
it's scary to have that conversation, but it grows your relationship. It really does to bring it up, have a constructive talk about it. Don't start yelling at each other. You won't get anywhere. Don't say I'm leaving with or without you. That won't end well.
No ultimatums. That's a pretty good relationship rule in general, I'd say.
Yeah,
Of
I would agree.
yeah, avoid the ultimatums. It's me or Denver.
Exactly.
So, did you know at that point that when you and her were having that conversation, did you know you wanted to combine accounting with aviation, or did you just make a
I
change?
was I was exploring many different options. I was exploring going into just general public accounting, working for a national accounting firm, doing taxes, doing audit. Again, not very passionate about that. But then it was because this conversation was probably a month before I heard your podcast, and so we talked it over. Her mom listened, and both of them said, "You need to find something in aviation." I went to lunch with a colleague, and I asked quite a few people what they think I should do. So I said, well, maybe I'll open up my own forensic practice, then I can focus on fraud. I can do fraud, a majority of it. That's what I'd like to do. They said, well, you're going to a new area. You don't know anyone. Are you okay? Are you okay financially to work without pay for a while? Because that very well could happen. So, and then they said, well, you could go into public accounting. And one person said, you're being too practical. You think because you have a CPA license that your life has to be spent in public accounting. That's not the case. And that same person, after we went to lunch, he emailed me a week later, and he said exactly what I just told you. But then he finished it off with, when we talked about what you're going to do, your aviation, every time we talked about aviation, your eyes lit up. You obviously have a strong passion for it. That is where you need to go. That is where you should put your resources. Your CPA license will allow you to land a job in an accounting department of an aviation company. And I think that's where you should go. So that started the path. And I started looking and found a few, never heard from a few. But
Yes. So let's not to interrupt you. Let's talk about that a little bit because it's obviously it's a big leap for a reason, right? Like this, moving cross country, changing industries, or even areas of the industry, and how you're applying your skills is there's a reason why it's a little daunting, right? Because it's not a straightforward switch. So, what were some of the doubts that, or just things that maybe came to mind as you are thinking about making this switch?
yeah, I mean the biggest doubt is I'm forensic accounting is nothing like your your general accounting, your private accounting. It's you go in, you look at all the data, you take all the data, and you put it together as the case sees fit. It's it's not one size fits all. It's not. Uh, there is no template. Every single case is different. So going back to something where it is guarded, it is uh, how you say it's. You can cut this part out.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
I'm I'm
I,
trying to
honestly,
think of the.
I think I understand a little bit of what you're saying without knowing accounting. It sounds like you're trying to make a case with forensic accounting, whereas with general accounting, it's more about the objective view of things. Is that more accurate, or?
Yeah, in forensic accounting, you're making a case, and then in general accounting, you're either putting together financial statements for investors, for regulators, for owners. So it's you're the the general financial statements change, but not to a degree like they would in forensic accounting. So now I'm 4 years into a profession where every time I get a new case, it's entirely new. But going into private accounting, it's not going to be that. So there's the worry that, am I going to get bored in this? Am I gonna come in every day? Every month you got to close the books. Is it going to get boring? But that's why I said I'm not going to go just do accounting for XYZ company.
Gotcha. That makes a ton of sense. I tell me then, because I know it was not my podcast entirely. It was not that episode of this podcast. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm very proud of that episode of the podcast. It was something that kind of like came, through me as opposed to really being me. But I know that it wasn't my voice and my words that got you to the point where you overcame any of those doubts or the hesitation or the worry about, your significant other and moving together. What shifted for you where you inevitably overcame that doubt about moving away from home where you've been in your entire life, moving away from a career and a profession where you've had success and you're comfortable? What was that experience like where you inevitably just overcame all that doubt and hesitation and said, you know what, I'm doing this?
I think it was more the support of friends and family and former colleagues and meeting with them. Uh, and like I said, that email from a colleague just saying, your eyes light up when you talk about aviation. And so at that point I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to push through my doubts. I'm going to uh, push for something that I'm going to enjoy. I like you said earlier, you said some people live to work. I am not that. I am a work so I can live type. And if I can combine getting a job in something I'm passionate about, it is on an airport. So it's right next to, I can go for lunch to the cafe and watch planes take off, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah. So you mentioned that the support of your friends and family and having the support group is immensely important. When you decided I'm going to go for this, how did you feel internally? Right? Because, and I might be getting a little bit personal here, so feel free to say pass on this question. But I know for myself, there have been times that I've done things that other people told me I should do or I could do or I was capable of doing. And while that might have pushed me into making the decision, inevitably there's a shift in me and a belief that maybe didn't exist before. So when you said, okay, it's time to start looking for jobs in Denver, how did you feel at that point?
At first, it's something new. I love doing new things, trying new things. I travel a lot. I'm always open for just something new to do, and that's one reason I was looking to leave. But right away, I felt great. I was like, let's do it. Then you get on the job boards and you look for what you're looking for. And when you don't see it and you're not finding it, let me tell you, that's pretty demoralizing. When I want to do accounting and aviation, I sent a few messages on LinkedIn. I've sent some emails, just trying to connect with people in the industry. Whether they're busy, they don't see it, or they choose not to respond. After a while, that does get pretty demoralizing when you're stuck at square one. Don't have movement. That was probably at least a month, maybe two, in that. And that's when I started like, all right, well, who do I know in regular public accounting? Who can help me get my resume in the door somewhere? I want to move. And then I was almost ready to take a step back and say, I just want to move from Florida. But then you keep looking. I didn't settle. I didn't say, you know what, forget it, I'm moving on. But it in the beginning felt great. After that, it was a little bit of downhill until I did get my first callback for an aviation company working in their accounting department. Then I got another one a few days later and another one after that. And then my morale really picked up. And this particular company, uh, I had two interviews almost back to back. And I called my girlfriend after one of them and I said, if I get this job, this will be a dream job. And I'm very fortunate that while the interview process was a little long, they do make sure that you're going to fit. but I did end up getting that job, and I'm very excited to be working at my dream job.
That's awesome. I do want to point out, I like what you mentioned where, you did still kind of look into some public accounting jobs. You realize that maybe it's possible that this wouldn't be a like one step move across country and into exactly the job that you wanted. So you're willing to prioritize what was important, right? And say, well, maybe if I can find an accounting job in Denver, then from there I can maybe move into the industry I wanted to. Fortunately, you didn't have to do that, but I think that is extremely important for folks to recognize that if there are multiple factors to the shift and the change you want to make, sometimes you have to prioritize which one is most important. Um, for example, I know whenever I moved here to Austin, Texas, I took a job that I didn't really know a ton about, and it was a good job at the time, but it only lasted about 6 months. And then I ended up working for a company. After getting laid off of that job, I worked at a company for 7 years that was amazing and shifted my entire life. So I think sometimes just being in the place geographically you want to be, or maybe moving into the industry you want to be. I don't know if you would agree with me or not, but figuring out what's most important as far as a change that involves multiple steps can be really valuable. Knowing that maybe you won't go from job you're unfulfilled into dream job, right? Even if you're not as fortunate or as you've been and as I've been, sometimes you can step it out, and kind of go through multiple steps. So that's awesome. So then how I love this dog so much. I'm about to punt him out the window. Uh, and he's literally like nipping at my knees as we are recording this. So these are the joys of having a puppy. I don't even want to know what folks with children who are recording podcasts are dealing with. But
This is
what?
not running behind you.
No, I mean, he is. It's just he's only at knee height right now. Anyway, so you you ended up finding this job through the same sort of job boards, or like where all did you look? What do you think worked and didn't work for you when you were looking? Um, you know, anything that you think worked for a particular reason while something else didn't?
Well, I went through the usuals: LinkedIn, Indeed. Those are, I think, right now the two biggest ones, and it's just checking every day. I found this position. I believe it was the day or the day after they posted it. So because I was constantly monitoring, I found it. Um, but I tried. There's a website called Flex Jobs. I was like, well, maybe I'll work from home. I'll do accounting and I'll work from home. Maybe that will fulfill me, not having to commute, because I don't know, for those that don't live in South Florida, uh, driving anywhere between Miami and uh, South Palm Beach County is a nightmare, to say the least. It's not as bad as somewhere like Atlanta or LA, but it's enough to start and end your day off wrong.
Yeah,
Um,
I find that traffic patterns in places where traffic is bad, um, there's there's usually no comparison. It's just terrible. I mean, Austin is one of those places where you know, it can take you an hour and a half to go 10 miles, and for some people that's awful. For some people, I've been in Atlanta and I've done that drive too. Not fun. Um, LA is one of the worst in the country, as well as New York. I learned how to drive kind of in New York. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody. Um, but so consistency in your actions, though, it sounded like you were committed to this, and so you were going to consistently check Indeed, LinkedIn, those places until the right thing came up.
yep, yep. I set up email alerts, so I pretty much just put in aviation in one of the email alerts, and I got an email every time something aviation. I mean, it sent me everything from a line technician, which is someone who fuels the planes for $12 an hour, all the way up to CEO of a jet charter company, which not I would like that, but not quite at that level. Um,
Also, I'm not sure why they're looking for that person on LinkedIn and Indeed.
yeah, you might be right on that.
Might
Um,
want to hire an executive recruiter to find your CEO, but hey,
yeah,
it's not my company.
um, but
Well,
but yeah, you're exactly right. The consistency. of utilizing those resources was key to
Consistency, and it sounds like patience too, knowing that you may not find it right away.
patience. Exactly. I'll tell you the truth. And when we said we're going to move, I was like, let's do it. Let's go tomorrow. My wife was like, absolutely not. That is not a smart financial and adult decision someone would make. I said, yeah, but we can figure it out. Let's just go. But luckily I had her to hold me back because I might have done it alone.
I understand. I probably should have had that voice in my mind a few times in my life, and I appreciate that you have that. I think I decided to move to Austin and pulled the trigger easily within a month of making the decision. And luckily, it worked out for me, but I could see how a million ways it could have gone wrong. So it's good to have that voice of reason. um, so then tell folks kind of what happened. So you started in July. You kept searching. You were very consistent about this. You did this lengthy interview process, but the company was thorough. And now we're recording this in mid December. And what's next?
Next is I have a week and a half left at my current job. Um, I am just after Christmas. We'll be packing up the house, loading it into a U-Haul U-Box, and having them ship it across the country. We're gonna ship our cars. I could thought about driving my car, but it's about 2,000 miles and 30 hours, potentially through winter winter conditions, which I am born and raised in South Florida. I think I mentioned that. I don't know how to drive in snow yet, so
You'll
I
you'll
would
learn. You'll learn.
I
Don't
would
worry.
I would I would like to get there, put some snow tires on, get familiar with it instead of being thrown into the deep end uh, and trying to get from Florida to Colorado. So, but we've got our plane tickets are booked. We know what day we're going to be landing in Denver. We actually decided on an Airbnb for the first month so we could figure out where we want to. We've been to Denver plenty. We don't know enough about it to say we want to live in this part of Denver or this is the type of housing we're looking for. So Airbnb that actually has helped immensely in the shift because it takes a whole lot of stress off trying to find a place. We're only locked in for a month,
Yeah,
so we don't like it. We're only there a month, not 12.
that's amazing. It's awesome what kind of services exist nowadays where you can do something like that. God, even having the internet, like if you had decided where you wanted to live, you could have bought a house online. Whereas you think about it 20 years ago, you move cross country, you just buy a house, maybe sight unseen,
Mm-hmm.
or wait till you get there and you're living in a hotel for God knows how long. So that's awesome. And you start the new job. What was the date again?
January 13th.
January 13th. And without going into too much detail about the company, because this story is about you and not about the company, like what is it that the company does and what excites you about
This is actually a startup. They I am one of the early members of their accounting department. They've outsourced their accounting to this point. They're bringing it in house, but the company is developing a supersonic jet airliner, which will replace the Concorde jet that hasn't flown in I think 16 years now. And I'm super excited about the opportunity to work for a company that is trying to bring back something so awesome.
it? That's amazing. Very awesome. Cool. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. What would you recommend to? So let me ask you this question real quick. How old are you again?
34.
34. Okay, so we're not that far off then. I don't know why I thought that you were younger, or that much more younger than I am, or maybe I just feel old. Um, so what would be your recommendation then to somebody who maybe is in a similar situation to where you were 6 months ago? Maybe they're even a few years out of college and they're in an industry or a section of an industry where they're it's not what they thought, right? Like you thought that you were going to be helping to put away the bad guy, right? What would you recommend to somebody who has this profession that they're in, but it's just not as fulfilling to them? Like, what would you recommend that they do, or what advice would you give?
Uh, don't job hop around trying to find that out. That as you said, as a hiring manager, it's down the road. It could make it difficult for someone to pass your resume along. But really get out there, meet people. Like I mentioned before, I started a flying club at the airport near my house. We all bought a plane together. I'm in a couple of different pilot organizations. Um, I work with a representative for a national uh, a group that represents pilots, uh, talking with him about doing something in aviation. So find people, find first what you're interested in, find what gets you excited. If you got to talk to people, if you need someone to tell you, like someone told me, someone really sent me that email and said, I can tell that your passion lies in aviation. I think you should pursue it. If you have to have go get coffee, go get lunch, send messages, send emails, have phone calls, uh, ask people from the outside, ask people what they see, ask what they think that you'd be passionate in. Uh, that will probably give you more guidance than possibly starting within, because you might say you can tell yourself a lot of things and you'll believe it,
Yeah.
and then it's the people on the outside that can see truly what you're passionate about. Um, so I would biggest piece of advice is utilize your friends, family, resources, colleagues, talk with them, uh, have get their point of view, get what they see, what they think you'd be good at, where you should, where your career should head.
I, I love that advice. You started out by talking about, don't do this, don't job hop trying to discover it, right? And I think that a lot of people, they they think they should go find their passion or discover their passion externally, right? Like it's like I need to go out and find what it is that I'm supposed to do, and oftentimes it is right in front of you. And to your point, and I'm going to try to summarize probably poorly what it was you just said, but instead of figuring out and job hopping and finding a job that may be something that works for you, looking inside, but also then the people that you trust in your environment, getting the opinions of like, what do you want to do? Not what might you want to do, what don't you want to do, but like really figuring out like, what is it about your life that does make you come alive? And I love what you said, multiple times here about how other people notice that in you. Because I think so often we don't even recognize when we're talking about aviation and we light up, or like it's possible that when you were talking with friends about aviation and in the same breath talking about accounting that you didn't realize that the two could go together, but they did.
We have a running joke
So
with one of my friends that uh, one of the first things out of my mouth will be, "Hey, I'm a pilot." I was at a networking event and he walked over and he said, "Hey, Brent," he said, "did he tell you he was a pilot yet?" And I was like, "Actually, we've been talking about 10 minutes and I haven't brought that up." He's like, "That's a first." So it's something I'm proud of, something I'm passionate about. So yeah, really figure out, use your resources, people you trust to help you discover that. If it's working, it might be working for a nonprofit that rescues cats. I don't know. It's
yeah.
that could be that's well within anyone's wheelhouse.
Well, and what I love so much about your story is you didn't decide to quit accounting and go become a professional pilot, right? Like that is the classic, in my opinion, the classic like entrepreneurial story of, well, if you love something so much, go do that thing, right? And that's like the only transition you could make would be from accounting into being a full-time pilot. That's not what you I mean, it is what you love, part of what you love about aviation, but flying is not the only way for you to love aviation and for you to be involved in it. And I love that, how you can just kind of be involved in that industry and realize that the industry itself brings you to life. and you can apply skills you already have. You don't have to start from zero and start from square one.
Exactly.
And that's amazing. Cool.
Yeah, I'd entertained when I first started flying the possibility of being a pilot, but I talked to a few, and if you're working towards the airlines, it's a very, very long road. You're working for not much money. You're spending a lot of time away from home. I have a friend who flies. I say I would love to have his job. He flies Gulfstream 5 G5 planes, which are amazing, amazing aircrafts. But he said, being home more than half the year, that's a hefty price to pay when you have a family.
Yeah.
So that really factors into your decision too.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Well, congratulations again.
Thank you.
Any final words you have for the listeners slash viewers slash Charlie Murphy, my golden retriever here?
Well, this is kind of biased, but if you ever have the chance to fly in a single engine plane with anybody, take it. You'll be amazed that the world is just a different. You get a different perspective on the world. One of my favorite quotes in aviation, and I'll leave you with this, is a mile of road will take you just 1 mile, but a mile of runway can take you anywhere.
I couldn't say it better myself. All right, folks. Well, that is it for this episode. Thank you so much, Brent, for joining us on the podcast and telling your story. And if you get a chance, go back and listen to that episode. Stop waiting for permission to. Sorry, I forget my own episode name. Stop waiting for permission
Stop
to
waiting for
grow.
permission to grow or change your career.
He said it. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, folks. And until next time, this is Sean for Brent signing off.
Thanks, Sean.